Perfect.
Bigger than you. I need to
You got to slouch.
I need a slouchy boy here. Hang on. I'm not stooping down to your level.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'll just sit up straight.
All right. All right. So yeah, this is my first time, so be gentle with me.
Yeah. I'm still practicing. This is like
It's all practice.
Practice rounds. Yeah.
All right. I'll let you. Do you have an intro?
The intro. This is the intro.
Oh, hi.
It's happening now. Yeah, this is the intro. This is Ara Day. This is my good friend Ara Day.
Hello.
The beautiful Ara Day. The brilliant, genius,
You're really
sparkling Ara Day.
Shit, you've set the bar incredibly high. Like, I feel like you should have started here and I can just dazzle from that point.
Yeah, you gotta live up to the sparkle now.
Shit. All right. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been fun being with you on the island and like having explored for the past like quarter year. I can't believe it's been like 4 months.
4 months.
It's wild.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, weird times.
Yeah. So, Ara's a good friend of mine. We met during lockdown here on Koh Phangan back in 2020, and then I guess you left the island. We both kind of our journeys sort of split, and then you came back 4 months ago?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like creepily stalked you on Facebook and like dropped in periodically. So we had like some tabs on each other throughout like that weird 4-year time span apart. But I feel like, just really had this very natural confluence of coming back together with like a lot of ease. And it was kind of, I was reflecting on this, like the different human being that I was during COVID times, like during lockdown, and then like the different woman that I've evolved into and coming back here, and especially like in the juxtaposition of seeing old friends and being on different levels and like having witnessed your own evolution and like kind of meeting up on the same parallel in a lot of ways, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What do you think, like is there a theme that you would say that watching yourself on that journey and growing or whatever and transforming, what do you think the island did to you, the experience being here during COVID?
Yeah, you make it sound like an episode of Lost, which it is. It's very similar.
Yeah, I mean, because in a way, it's sort of it was a unique experience because we were here on this tiny island in the southern Gulf of Thailand, literally like as on the opposite end of the world from the U.S., like literally as far away as you can get, and then basically untouched from COVID. It was like like we didn't have a single case of COVID for the first year, and we were out here. Like the community here is very alternative, for lack of a better word. It's a lot of, there's the whole spectrum of beliefs and conspiracy theories and attitudes towards medical treatment and healthcare and like the pro-vax, anti-vax, what
it's a lot of extremes,
cloud seeding, it's like the whole, it's like every theory you could think of, and so it was a unique set of characters that were all, but I think the unifying thing was that like the thing that we all kind of had in common was that a lot of what brought us all out here in the first place was this sort of a desire to get out of mainstream society and this pursuit of an alternative lifestyle, and so it brought together a really unique and weird community of people. And then we were out on this little island, and then the world locks down, and we're like I felt like I was on a satellite in outer space, orbiting the Earth, just watching. It was like watching the news of what was going on.
It was very removed from everything. Like it was like it didn't register for me, like watching all the things that were happening in the States back home, like this dumpster fire of a situation. at the time. And it was hard. Like, I felt a little guilty because I didn't feel emotional about it. And I'm talking to friends back home that are really having like the most difficult year of their life. And I'm like, I'm having one of the best years of my life. Like, this place, I think, calls, like you said, to, you know, people are really seeking something either internally or externally when they come to the island. And this place is known for its healing energy. You know, people come here to explore tantra, explore different medicines, psychedelics. You know, this place is, it just sort of, it brings to the surface very quickly a lot of shadow work, whether or not you're really prepared for that or if you're seeking it. But I think regardless, it like really points out some of, I don't want to say deficits, but your shit, you know, it kind of shakes a lot of that loose very quickly. And like, the people that were here during COVID were some of the OGs of that, you know. It got rid of a lot of like the weekend warrior tourists, and it was just sort of like the extreme cases of weirdos that were left on the island. It was like, all right, well, we're here, we're buckling down, we're gonna see how weird this thing can get. And for me, that was magic. Like, the first time I came to KP, I was here for 2 weeks, and I had no idea what this was. My partner time, I came to visit him, and I thought 2 weeks was a really long time at that point in my life. And after having left here, I knew I needed to come back. So I had the intention of coming back here for like 3 months, I think was the number. And then COVID happened. It ended up being like over a year later, being steeped in all of this and like being able to spend time with other people that are just so amazing at thinking outside of normative living, of thinking outside of the typical rhetoric of this is how you do life. You should have a 9-to-5 job. You should have a husband and kids and a 401k and all that. And I was really able to flip my perspective on what abundance means to me around that. And then also, like, I think one of the major turning points was, you know, even though it was COVID and there weren't a lot of activities happening, like, I think almost every single weekend. Can I talk about drugs?
Yeah. Yes, you can talk about drugs. Yeah.
So, yeah, like every single weekend we would go to Waitanam or Bottle Beach and we would drop acid for like literally 8 months every single weekend in a row. You know, that's a lot of mind opening, channel inducing activity and energy. And that was also a huge catalyst for really reprogramming a lot of my neural pathways around how I thought about reality and how I thought about myself and the construct of individuality, I mean, all the things, the rabbit holes that we could get into with that. But yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the rabbit holes. Yeah, I guess. You know, I'm not really sure where to go with it. I feel like the like I do want to. I do feel this kind of need to, like, clarify or something that, like, it's like when you talk about drugs, you know, it's like I feel like there's a lot of different relationships that one can have with it, and it's like, you know, some people can be very reckless and unconscious and sort of escapist, and using drugs, and what I feel like is sort of an unconscious relationship. Whereas I feel like the way that, you know, the way that we approach it, is I guess this is kind of like, I guess I feel like a little bit defensive in a way of, like,
about the word itself,
or just like of our drug use. You know, like,
yeah. I mean, this is something I've actually been working on very recently, is like not like trying to let go of judgment. If somebody's experience is to take these substances without consciousness and just to tap out of their reality for a bit, like, that's their experience. You know, it's not to say it's better or worse. Like, maybe that's how they find God. I don't know. That's not my experience. You know, that's just what path they're on.
Yeah. Well, and I guess it's more just this sense from, like, I get this feeling from maybe like mainstream culture or something, is that it's like drug use is, or like, and even saying drugs, it like is not the right word at all.
Yeah.
But
medicines feels better, but that still feels like a little pretentious in some ways.
yeah, because it's like medicines or psychedelics that are being used in often typically in a party setting, but. I guess it's just like I feel like it's this kind of hangover from the drug war culture, the sort of 1950s era that we're still dealing with. Like we've come a long way, and it's like there's legalization, and psilocybin is psilocybin and MDMA is starting to become legalized in the U.S., which is amazing.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's still it's like I guess it's like one of these things where like there's been times when I've felt really compelled to like I don't know that I would actually ever do this, but there was a period where like I was feeling this desire to like work with the elderly, bring like with
like drop acid with Nana.
Well, mushrooms, like psilocybin with Nana.
Yeah,
in a sort
time.
of end of life stage, like and I feel like it can, for people, especially people dealing with like terminal illness and really like really hard end of life experiences, that I sense that there's a lot of fear and fear of letting go, and I think that these medicines can go a long way and alchemizing that and heal, like it's sort of healing that.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, a practitioner that I worked with back in California and San Diego, she's a death doula.
Yeah,
and this is what she does, because it like. A lot of people's belief, and my own included, is that like the actual act of this physical body dying and passing, and a lot of the struggle comes from the ego's perception that this is us, and right. Letting that go. And one of the major components of psychedelics is that disillusion, that this body belongs, that this is us, that this is like I believe that we are our consciousness. We are not our physical form. This is a rental car, and it's going home at the end of the day.
Right. The meat suit robot.
Yeah, it's the avatar. It's how we function. It's how we learn in this university of this experience. So yeah, I've witnessed actually firsthand some really powerful sessions of people that were very close to death on with terminal illness, and being able to see that ego dissolution and the ease in which they were able to now comprehend their own passings. That's a big fucking concept, even for those of us that are like, oh yeah, death, okay, that's a very natural part of life, that is the next stage. It's still scary, that ego really clings to this experience of what we perceive ourselves to be.
Yeah, well, I think it's possibly like the biggest experience. It's like biologically, our programming is like prevent death. It's like do anything but die. Like everything that we do, on a sort of programmatic.
Absolutely, this is why we procreate. It's like so that we can continue our lineage, and our cellulars get to carry on and do our bidding. And it's all very. I always thought that procreating was very egomatic, kind of a operation, but that's a different story altogether.
Yeah,
anyway.
You have something against like making babies.
No, I don't mind other people making babies, but this is what I feel like is, it's like, oh, I'm awesome. Let me make more of me. I get it on a certain level. I just don't particularly have a desire to like contribute to that.
Yeah, interesting. Well.
Maybe that's for a different. We'll do a follow up on this.
Yeah, I feel like I feel. Yeah, I kind of want to like go down that road.
All right, yeah, I mean, pull threads, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, interesting. So, well, yeah, it's like I don't want to leave the psychedelic thing. I want to like come back to this.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I guess so. It's like with the psychedelics, I feel like a lot of I feel like every time I do it, it's kind of chipping away at my ego just a little bit more. It's like breaking it down. And sometimes it's funny because even with the amount of like practice and experience that I have with it, it still surprises me sometimes in ways where it's like I'll maybe struggle with an experience, and then later it's like, oh, I see what, like, that's what it was breaking that part of my ego down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we were talking about this recently where, you know, people that are on this spiritual path where they're exploring all these different fractals and facets of themselves, like I've seen it happen several times where they kind of fall into this like spiritual eddy of like, oh, I've done the work. I've done all the work. There's no more work to be done. And it's, I don't think that that's true. I think that that's like when death happens. You know, I think that there's always more stuff to uncover, more layers of the onion to unfold, to explore about ourselves, of like, because you're always collecting more data all the time. This external experience heavily dictates the internal experience. And, you know, that's what karma is, basically. It's like you're either unwinding or collecting. But I think to not be doing either, I don't know that state exists.
Well, I mean, to me, if you get to that place where you're saying that I've done all the work and like I've done it, it's like that's actually an indication that
you probably have like a lot of work to do.
It's like actually if anybody in the room has to do some work.
Well, this is where you start to see people like creating cults and shit, and they're like, my place is the best place. I know everything. Drink some Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you know? I think it's like that place. It's like when you get to a place of conclusion. It's like where you're like, oh, this is how it works. Or like it's like where it sort of takes a definitive form. It's like that's when it needs to be broken down again. It's like you have to be constantly questioning.
We're not meant to be in singularity, you know. Like everything is a duality, and it's like once you break it down to this one thing is it, then you're sort of negating the whole spiritual practice of creating that polarity, of finding that sweet spot of like for me in the psychedelic realm, one of my biggest lessons recently was like, it sounds so simple when I say it out loud, but understanding that more than one truth can exist at the same time and be correct, right? Like I had a challenging experience with a friend where we had this experience and her story is vastly different from my own. But that doesn't negate her truth or the reality of how she feels about that or the trauma that she's sustained from it. Like that is very, very real. However, my story is very different and my trauma is a little different from that. You know, and both of those are very true and very valid. And this is something that I just had a huge aha moment about of like, oh, all of these multiple and conflicting truths can exist at the same time and be 100% legitimate.
Yeah, well, and so, but when you say legitimate, it's like, okay, so the way that I'm understanding it is like you have two individuals who have their story. Everybody has their experience of the event or whatever it is that you know you experience together, and then, but they don't match up.
Yeah.
In the way that they're told, and so, like. But well, and so I guess it's like the question to me is like where okay, so like I agree it like I'm on the same page with this, but it's like and so this question to me is like where is the truth, or how can these truths be held simultaneously? Because I think this is a microcosm of, like, you can extrapolate this to what's going on in the world globally, is like this disintegration of reality, of a shared reality that we can agree on.
Yeah. So I don't know that we will ever find this shared, like, again, it goes back to the singularity, right? But you can have your story, which is your 100% truth. Like, that is your experience. That is totally valid. Your feelings and emotions that come up around that are 100% real. I can have a very different story, and that is still very truthful to me. I'm sure that there is like some universal truth of some gesture in the sky that's like, oh, I know the real deal there. But on this human realm, it's really interesting to understand that, like, for me, all of these can happen at the same time, be completely conflicting, and still hold absolute validity. You know, because it's like, how often have you been in a situation where you're speaking your truth and somebody tries to tell you that it's wrong, right? Or dissuade you or invalidate it. And I think for me, that was a big takeaway. Like, I may not agree with you. It doesn't mean that I have to conform to your truth or subscribe or change my version of the truth. It's just that I honor that this is so real for you.
Right. Well, so how does this, so like if we sort of pull back to like the macro scale, or something like that, like how, like I've been thinking about this in relation to like facts.
It's a heavy quotation marks set around that.
Well, right. Well, exactly, because I've been this is sort of I don't know. It's like an intuition. It's not even a theory but it's just these are some of the sort of vague questions that I've been playing with for years now. Which, you know, and especially when COVID happened, this really came to the forefront. Which, like, facts and trust the science, and it was these sort of and then misinformation, disinformation. Sure. And it's like, well, what does that even mean? You know, I feel like it's been the COVID experience in particular was really useful in what I think is happening is that it's pushing to the surface this reality that there is no such thing as facts or truth, and that actually what I think we're approaching, or what I'm approaching at least, is this understanding of reality and truth as being a malleable, shapeable substance almost. It's like you can bend it, and you can and it's like the truth has more to do with what you believe. As it's projected out versus some kind of universal objective thing that is projected at you. And so I feel like like on a individual scale, it's like you have two different like you know, we were talking about this the other day. It's like I feel like we're all just kind of walking around like nobody has any idea what's going on. And it's like we come together, and I'm like, you know, we're looking at something, and it's like, hey, do you see what I see? And I'm, you know, and I'm looking at you, and you're like, and it's like you can't, like nobody can see what I see, and I can't see what anybody else sees, and so we're all just going, hey, do you see what I see? And you're like, no, but we can agree to a certain extent. Like we can at least agree that like what we both see is close enough that we can move forward.
Right. There's like enough overlapping data where we can agree that there's something here that we both kind of duly opt into as a quasi-reality, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think quasi-reality, a quasi-truth,
yes,
is a good way to put it, because it's just these sort of agreements.
Yeah.
You know, versus something that's being like projected onto us is like, no, this is the truth. There's nothing else, you know.
Yeah, and the human mind is really fascinating. Like through our evolution, like we've adapted these certain mechanisms. Like the human brain is both a supercomputer and incredibly lazy. Like it will omit a lot of data to prove that it is right. You know, if you have a concept that you believe, you will double down and you will cherry pick information to reinforce this concept. You'll also, like, we tend to also seek out like-minded individuals, you know, that reinforce that we are correct. You know, this aggregated news feed of like, oh, your reality looks like my reality, therefore it is the correct reality, right? And you see this on a world scale.
The echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and like, yeah, so it's this confirmation bias that we really get sucked into, that I think it behooves people to take a step back and really question the rhetoric that they surround themselves with. You know, it's like, even these days, even if there is a concept that I believe wholeheartedly, I like to at least pause and ask myself why periodically. Like, take a step back, and it's like, maybe I'm not right. And that's a really powerful place to be in. And I don't think people do this often enough, like about their assumptions and their stories. And like, what if we just hit that pause button and could look at it from the other side of the mirror and being like, what about this other reality? Like, how, like, what is the validity? What, like, I mean, that's basically just describing empathy, I suppose. You know, but yeah, it's an interesting practice. But yeah, I think like as the collective, we saw this the other weekend where people tend to lump together same energy vibrations, right? People that are operating in the same mechanisms tend to form packs. You know, we are pack animals, and you like the smell of this person, and they smell like you, and they think like you, and they got the same taste, and you wear the same clothing, and then you just sort of sit there and you can circle jerk each other into this very particular reality.
Right. Well, and I think for me, that, you know, in my own version of that is looking at it and asking the question, is this what I want to believe? It's not even like, is this right? It's like, is this what I prefer? Is this like, does this feel good?
Like, from what perspective are you questioning it? Is it like, is this benefiting me, or is this like, does this feel good within my consciousness, or is this like my higher self directing? Like, what does that look like in your head when you're questioning?
Well, I think it, maybe if I had a specific, it would help, but it's like, it's sort of like, does this feel good as like, well, okay, so like I think of like conspiracy theories a lot. And I've been limiting my exposure to this kind of content. You know, like, I find it fascinating. I think it's a fun game, or a maze to kind, you know, it's a labyrinth, and that's fun to play in. But I try not to lose myself in that world, because I find a lot of it, because depending on, for me, I mean, I can only speak for my own relationship with it, but I find a lot of it is rooted in fear and paranoia, and like, it's like, it comes from a place of that, like a world of emotions that I don't really want to saturate myself in. And it's like, and you know, I don't know, and like, to a certain extent, it's just like, it's like you give attention to it, and what you give attention to grows. That, and like, that is the reality that you create. And so if you create this reality where the water is poisoned, and we're, you know, viruses are being created in labs, and everyone's trying to kill us, it's like, that is the, you know, and there's nuclear Armageddon around the corner.
It almost turns into like mass manifestation.
Well, in a way, right? Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. No, I really commend you for, like, I don't think enough people pause to even think about that conceptually, of like what they're, like, we're both pretty conscious about what we consume to, like, and I think this also lumps into consumption of like, what are we watching? You know, are we watching 16-year-olds bounce around with their tits on TikTok, or are we watching, like, you know, interesting videos on YouTube that are mind expanding and heart centered? And it's you know, that also saturates your vibration and what you're digesting on a cellular level. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, and it's like, I know, you know, I look at certain people who are like really down some of these wormholes, that it's super fascinating stuff, and I think there is value there. There is like, it's an interesting world, but I can see it's like in their energy field or something, it's just like I just kind of look at it. And it's like that's not the world that I want to live in. I don't want to immerse myself in the and well, okay, so it's like there's sort of two things that are related to this. Like one is I
also just realized we have the same hairdo right now. Sorry to copy you. It's just too damn hot. I can't. Yeah, it's a lot happening.
It looks good. What
yeah, you look great too. It's a nice look. All right, what are the two things?
Well, so I think I look at okay, so I have a theory about the pyramids.
Okay, lay it on me. What do you got?
And it's like, okay, so the pyramids, these magnificent, precise, technological, architectural creations were built.
You're talking about the Egyptian pyramids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, it's this. There's a lot of mystery around this. It's like nobody really knows how did they move these stones? How did they create these things with such precision? And there's some fringe theories that I subscribe to that are about basically they were using sound levitation technology. They were using like vibrational energy.
I've seen this done today, like in science, where they'll levitate not a light object with vibrations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like we've recreated some of this stuff in labs on a small scale, and so I think the first argument against it would be like, well, these are like primitive people, and like how could they have access to this technology or whatever? It's sure, but
well, that's a whole other
whatever. But no, but it's like I guess like the core of my sort of theory about it is that the technology has been lost, but it's like how to phrase this? It's like the reason there's something one of the key elements is that you need a collective belief. You need the density of the collective energy field needs to. It's like, okay, I gotta like explain this better. But it's like if you have a whole society, if you have like 100,000 people that all believe that this is possible, that we can levitate huge rocks with sound technology, the belief, the energy field of that belief makes it so.
So I think I read or saw something somewhere that it is a very small amount of people to create a very powerful manifestation. I want to say, I'm making this number up, but I want to say it's like 188 people. Like it's very, very
really
small.
Yeah,
like it's shockingly small. I think they did this through like group meditation. I'll have to dig up the YouTube video. I'm pretty sure that's where I saw it. But yeah, I mean, we talked about like Hollywood movies, right?
Well, that's what that was. I wanted to get to.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Next.
All right, the punchline.
Well, but it's like so it's like when you okay, what you believe, what you give attention to, is the reality that you manifest. And it's like where our limitation is like we just don't really understand. Like for me, it's like I just don't understand the mechanics of it. I don't have command of this enough to like really, I'm not a total wizard or something. But it's like, but I intuitively, well, it's like this is the practice. It's like this is what I'm. But I know this, for me, I know this to be true. It's like what I give my attention to grows. That's the reality that I create. What I my reality is being manifest as a projection of my inner state.
Yeah.
And so in the case of the Egyptians, you have a whole bunch of people who got together and they all believe they're just born into a society where this technology already exists. So there's no even second guessing it.
Right.
They just know, they believe it. And so
whereas today we're kind of fighting this upstream battle,
right?
We've coming back into consciousness of like, oh hey, we do have these gifts and this ability and this energetic force field that we can now dictate energy with.
Right. We like somewhere along the line we lost that technology, and then now that it's lost, we've gone on a different branch where now we've gone into like whatever other modalities, and we've created all sorts of other technologies that didn't exist, but because we believe in it. Because it's like computers exist because we believe that electron gates can make binary decisions.
You know what just came out recently, to segue slightly? So the FDA just approved sound vibrations, sound frequencies to treat, I think it was liver cancer. Like, this is FDA approved, using sound frequencies to break up cancer cells in the liver. Like the dirty hippie in me was like, well, yeah,
Right.
But that's amazing that that's now part of mainstream medicine. That to me, that's a huge step forward that they're realizing and even exploring within these modalities. And it's same for psychedelics, right? Because to me, that is one of the ultimate technologies.
Right.
That is the technology that unlocks human consciousness so that we can now tap into these lost art forms, these lost beliefs, perceptions, tools that we ourselves are the tools. We are these channels.
Right.
And we're starting to wake up and remember that.
Right. And I think a lot of these, it's like, we're channeling something from another dimension. And these scientific breakthroughs, these, technology advancements, these are all just expressions of what's coming through.
Yeah.
I think blockchain technology is one of these big things where it's there is this. Yeah. Oh, this is a good example. So like blockchain tech, like decentralized, distributed, just decentralized technology. It's like this was coming through enough people on a collective scale that it was birthed. It's being birthed. Like we're in the, and it's like same with AI. It's like it's not just one individual, but it's like this is all coming through the collective, and then we're building it and giving birth to these entities, really.
The thing that excites me, one of the things that excites me about like blockchain and like crypto and decentralization in general, is that it was really a huge indicator to me, because something that is centralized, like the USD, right? Like that is one pinpoint, one entity is in charge of that. And it was to me indicative of like feminine energy coming back in a very big way. And I think that was really terrifying for the patriarchy, for the way that like our economic systems were run for, hundreds and hundreds of years. And I love that like the feminine is the decentralization of the universe. Like we're wild. You have no idea what the fuck we're going to do next.
Right.
And that's what's exciting about it, right? And
you can't control it.
You can't control it, and it's like it's all the potential. And for me, that was a huge indicator of this shift in the collective consciousness when that started becoming a really big thing. And the thing that I find really interesting is that I don't meet a lot of women that are heavily into blockchain. Like there's a couple here and there, but most of them are really deep in their masculine. But this is like a very masculine run concept. And I'm kind of curious to understand that better. Like I haven't met a woman that I've been able to have a conversation around that with. That was a segue rabbit hole, by the way, but.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess what comes to mind is just that it's like the details of it. It's like from a macro conceptual point of view, it's feminine. But when you get into the details of like how to create a blockchain node or how to, it's like then you're back into the world of like masculine. You need the masculine rules.
Container to define it. Interesting. I didn't think of that.
Which is an interesting relationship, because it's like it's the granular details on the atomic level are masculine program rules.
Yep.
And then but the bigger
picture,
blurry picture is the feminine, decentralized chaos.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I forgot where we were before we segued into
Well, so so there's the pyramids, and there's this sort of collective manifestation. There's there's the attention of the collective, the things that the collective think about, give attention to, the beliefs give birth and manifest the reality that they exist in. And so I think one thing that we, one of the places that we see this, a really powerful mechanism of this wizardry that we see today is in Hollywood, is in the movies.
Yeah.
Particularly, like just for an example, the specifically, feature-length theatrical cinema in a movie theater is like, it's feeding us ideas.
Well, it takes over your whole reality for a prolonged period. That's like meditating on a very specific subject for 2 hours.
Right.
When I meditate, I definitely don't meditate for 2 hours. To sit there and have like, how many people do you have in a movie theater at a time? Like
200.
Something like that. But you have collectively 200, which is over 188 people, by the way. Right, all sitting there with their entire somatic reality being enveloped in this very particular storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And like, you do see this where you'll see a blockbuster movie come out, and usually like a year and a half or so later, like something very similar happens, like pre-pandemic, right? If you go back and you just Google search, like, 2017, 2018, there was a lot of movies that were coming out about pandemics that time.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so you have full attention to immerse yourself in the imagination, in the imaginary world. And the thing that is amazing and I mean it's like both amazing and disturbing to me, but it's like you so like one of the like if you get into like manifestation techniques, it's like a lot of the sort of core teachings is like, imagine that it's already real. Like if you want $1 million, imagine that you already have it. What does it feel like? What is it? What kind of car do you drive? What kind of clothes are you wearing? And you start filling in all these little details, and you feel what it feels like to have $1 million. And then the theory is that if you do that, then your unconscious will just sort of make the subconscious decisions to guide you to that $1 million.
Yeah. And
so when with a movie, you are immersed in like the finest details, like a close-up of Keanu Reeves' face as the sweat drips down, and like in this reality that like we're imagining,
IMAX and 3D in the mix,
right? And it's like okay, like the Matrix, and it's like this is the reality of it, or like 28 Days Later, like any pandemic movies or whatever. You're devoting all of this attention, and then you're imagining to the finest detail. What does the sky look like? What does the sweat
and your body's even releasing chemicals in that moment of reacting to this experience. Like when you watch a scary movie, like you're dropping cortisol into your system.
Right. Right. And so we're intensely like we're doing these exercises on a really crazy level. Like I couldn't do this if I was meditating for 2 hours. It's like you're inducing the emotional state of what it's like to be in a pandemic, and then you start doing that collectively, and then you take that out of the theater and you put it on Netflix, and now you have people in their homes every night, just and it's like, and then they're unconscious, they're drinking, they're they're tired after eating, and so they're just like laying around absorbing these messages. And so it's like so basically Hollywood. I mean, and now it's fracturing into whatever content, TikTok and whatever. But it's like these mediums are manifestation machines. They are. It's like whatever's coming through these channels is what we are being conditioned to go out and create.
And I think a lot of it. My theory, speaking of conspiracy theories, is that it's a control mechanism. Even something as benign as like, Friends, right? Like the old sitcom, right? Like there's a lot of relationship programming around that. Like I grew up on this shit. I grew up on like Sex and the City, and I had a very clear picture of what mono-heteronormative relationships should look like. And if I strayed from that, I was fucked up. Like it really messed me up in a lot of ways, because the way that I felt internally and the way that I wanted to interface with people didn't look like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that a lot of the media is a control mechanism of like, try to get mass majority on the same page in a controllable fashion, get them to buy the Wonder Bread, get them to get married, get them to have kids, procreate. Maybe this is why I'm anti-kids, because people are telling me to do this. Not anti-kids. Kids are great. They're wonderful sometimes.
Sometimes. when they're other people's kids.
I'm going to be a great auntie. But I don't even like other people's kids that much. They're usually assholes.
Yeah.
But it's like there's someone at the helm of this, right? Because it wasn't done unintentionally.
Right.
And like what I would love to understand is like how can we use this tool to switch the narrative around it? Like, how do you start like, when do the good guys come in, with a white cowboy hat and start programming people to operate out of love and not from fear? Like, how do we create more heart-based realities for people? Like, how do you start releasing oxytocin and dopamine and, all of the feel-good chemicals?
Mm-hmm.
And not in the ways that you look at a rom-com where you're like, fuck, I don't have that.
Right.
But, something that is... I don't even know how to describe what that would look like.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, why isn't it that way? Like,
because people that are free thinking are hard to control. People that are asking questions it's very easy to control people if you all have them thinking the same thoughts, the same programming. And it's very easy to shame people if they're not part of the vast majority. Our brains are programmed. We're pack animals. We're programmed to desire to fit in. There are these psychological studies where, like, people would go into a classroom and they would go in there individually and they'd be shown 3 lines. And they were very obviously different size lines. And they'd be asked to pick the shortest one, and they would always pick the right one. But if they went in a group and people would go in before them knowing, like, it's kind of rigged, and they would pick the second to the shortest one. And then the person who's the test subject would be like the 3rd or 4th person. They start questioning their own reality of like, maybe I'm not seeing this correctly because all of these guys chose option C when I very clearly understand that it's option B. So you talk yourself into like, the population consensus must be the right one and I must be wrong. It's a really powerful mechanism. Because you run the risk of being ostracized and shunned if you are not part of the group consensus. And that's why I love this place, is because I feel like a lot of people that went through that come here to KP. I think a lot of people that think outside the box, that don't do normal lifestyles, that are seeking something more than what we've been programmed to accept and desire. I think that a lot of people, there's definitely a lot of spiritual bypassing here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a ton of like wounding and shadows that,
not me, but like, I've seen people with this nonsense.
Yeah.
So to be clear, I do like some children. Like there's some really cool kids out there. They're just few and far between. Like they're usually. I kicked a child once.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
I'm sure they deserved it.
They
right?
did. They fucking kicked me first.
Yeah.
I didn't do it hard, but I'm like,
why not?
This is a good lesson for you, my friend. Like this is what life does. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. I also just feel like I doubled down on kicking kids, which I don't condone. Kicking children unless they do it first. Can we edit that out?
No, there's no editing allowed.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Well, and do you have, unless we have any other shit to talk about kids?
No. I'm off the kid train. Yeah, okay. I'm good on that. I feel complete. Thank you for asking.
So what are you? So this is your last day.
Yeah.
On the island.
Hmm. Yeah.
What happens next? Where are you going now?
So I head to Tokyo tomorrow. I'm gonna be there. I've always had this fascination with Japan. Like, I love the culture and the ancient, like the ceremony that they hold around everything just turns me on so much. But then it has this contrast of like some really weird stuff of like very repressed desires, and that comes out in a lot of like strange sexuality and a lot of like binge drinking, and it's a very interesting contrast that I'm just like so curious to go and check out. Then SoCal for a little bit, and then I think I'm probably relocating to Boulder this summer. I'm going to Naropa for psychedelic integration therapy certification, and it feels nice to just saturate myself in that environment for a little while. Go see what the channel change provides.
Yeah, that'll be really good. That'll be really cool. Yeah. I love Naropa. I went to University of Colorado.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And so it was like Naropa is kind of like embedded. It's like,
what was the vibe of like how, like, I know that there's like how different colleges view other like, tell me, what do people think of the Naropians?
Well, okay, so like CU is a state college. It's a state school, Big Ten football, whatever. Like it's pretty like,
people go to frat parties.
Parties.
Oh, and people pledge.
Yeah.
I love that could have been a timeline for you. That's so weird. I
did pledge.
Yeah.
A frat. I don't even know. Yeah, frat houses or one particular frat house I pledged and did not get accepted.
Thank God. I mean, I feel like you would have found your flavor of weird, but I feel like this would have taken you into some like really dark places first.
Oh, I'm so glad I did not get accepted. It was such a bad idea. But at the time I was so insecure, and I just wanted to belong. I was just trying to fit in. And my roommate was all about it. He was super into frats. And so I got kind of sucked into his vortex and hated every minute of it. And nobody liked me. Like, all these guys were just like, get this dork out of here. Like, I was making them look bad. They were like, dude, we're trying to get laid here. You can't stand next to us. But
in an alternate universe.
So it's
you still wear khaki pants and like a button down with a blazer and boat shoes.
Yeah. Well, and so CU as a whole is very like mainstream, it's very outdoorsy, but it's like, and then there was Naropa, which is what is it's Naropa, like, it's like school of, is it like poetics and Buddhism or something?
Yeah, so it's a Buddhist principle based school. I don't know if that's in the school title in of itself, but it's a Buddhist principle based school with like a lot of forte on psychology. I think is one of their main curriculums.
Okay.
So yeah, Buddhist psychology, which is fucking fascinating. Like I mean, before this, I went to California Institute of Inaugural Studies in San Francisco, and that's a very similar like thinking outside of the box, like looking at things from a very different perspective. Like obviously, we went through the basic principles or the theorists of psychology and whatnot, but yeah, I just like that they're looking at this shit a little bit differently.
It was a very different school.
Yeah.
Like Naropa kids were weird, and
I'm gonna fit in.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting because that was 20 years ago now. Like, I'm really curious to see how Naropa is doing in today's. Yeah. The way things have evolved now.
I mean, I think they're really championing championing that one.
Championing.
Easy for you to say.
Championing.
Some really interesting, because they're paired with maps. You know, a lot of my professors are scientists with maps.
Okay. So that's like, yeah, they're leading.
They're kind
the
of the cool kid now. It's like the weirdo in which you were, right? And then like you just sort of owned your shit and your energy, and you're just like, well, I'm just going to be weird, and what finds me finds me. And then it's like, you know, they aged into being this.
Now they're at the forefront of human evolution.
Pretty much.
And I think, and I think they always were. I think back then, there was always like, all of the Naropa kids were just, it was like they were just on a different planet. It was like there was something different about them. They had a completely different set of values.
Yeah. And
you could just see it in the way that they moved and the way that they talked and the way that they dressed. And I remember the people, the few people that I would meet, like at a party or something, were always so interesting. It was all like these people were just, it was like, where did you come from?
Just their brains. So yeah, the people that I've met that have gone there or are going there, like their brains just think differently, you know. Like there's a lot of talk about like neurodiversity, and like I call it neurospiciness.
Neurospice,
yeah. So like I'm a self-diagnosed
neurohot.
Yeah, I'm neurospicy.
You're neurohot. Yeah, neurohottie.
Yes.
Neuroslut.
Yeah, I dig that. I'll take it. Yeah. And there's something about being like, some people poo-poo like self-diagnoses, but like as I was going through my master's degree and I'm reading about, like, we had a whole curriculum on neurodiversity, and I'm reading this shit and I'm just like, my whole fucking childhood trauma is like summarized by a lot of, and like young adulthood and all of that. And I feel like people that, because even, so people that have been doing psychedelics for a while, they can be considered neurodivergent because you have now reformed the pathways of your brain in the way that it thinks and perceives somatic experiences. You know, and yeah, this was actually, it was really interesting. So I feel like a lot of people that are neurospicy probably tended towards Naropa. And I feel like a lot of people that are in this realm of psychedelics, like I was at the MAPS conference in Denver this past year, and I was watching, I can't remember what lecture I was watching, but a very loud noise came from outside, and you could just see like 3/4 of the audience was just like, you could see their nervous system be like, one of the, myself included, and just everyone just looks and scowls. Like, yeah.
Bunch of fucking snowflakes. Like,
yeah. I mean, the meek shall inherit the fucking earth, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's what we're looking at. So, yeah.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's been actually like one of the things I was thinking about earlier today when you asked me what we were going to want to talk about. One of the, are you familiar with like what unmasking is?
Probably. I don't know. I mean, vaguely, but not.
Okay.
No, please explain. Yeah.
So I'll do.
What is unmasking?
So yeah. So for neurodivergent individuals, there's a lot of coping mechanisms to fit into the general consensus of how a human being should act and feel and behave. And for a lot of us that do this for decades, it's really exhausting. And once you come to terms of like, we don't need to do this anymore, you then are faced, I was faced, I would say about a year ago, with a total identity crisis, because you've literally made up who you are to fit into society, whether your society is your partner or your parents or work or what have you, or all the above. And once you let go of these masking traits that like you felt like you needed to be safe and to fit in, you now have the task to fill in the blanks. Like I remember having a panic attack because I couldn't figure out what clothing I wanted to wear. Like very basic rudimentary things. So yeah, it was really a fun and interesting process to go through this. And it was a lot of, I did microdosing during this whole period, and it was really
microdosing psilocybin.
Yeah. So it was really reconstructing a lot of my neural pathways and building from the ground up. And a lot of it, like I had a macro journey where I've been really exploring my feminine aspects. And one of the mantras that came up for me is like, what feels nice? And for me, that's the ultimate feminine experience, is like, what feels nice in this body, in this mind, in this energy. And that's kind of been directing me of like, you know, the energetic body is a really solid barometer of what is and isn't for me. And I think that's true for everyone. But being able to gauge that and listen to it and then execute it, right? I don't remember where I was going with this, but that felt like it tied into Naropa experience somehow.
Yeah. Well, and just to sort of put a cap on that is like, I feel like collectively the people who opt in to go to Naropa are dropping that mask. It's because it's such a counterculture. It goes against it, like it's diametrically opposed to mainstream ideology. So it's like I was going to see you because I was just trying to fit in. I was like 18. I didn't know what's going on. I was like, well, you know, what should I do? And it's like, go into the machine, you know.
Sure.
Whereas the people at Naropa next, like literally touching CU, were like, they were making a bold, conscious decision to do the opposite of fitting in.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about microdosing. What have you gained from microdosing?
So I'll answer that from two different ways, because I love the woo-woo hippie stuff, but I also really love factual, like scientific, data-driven things, and these two worlds are merging beautifully right now.
I don't know if we said this, but you're a nurse.
I'm a nurse practitioner, and I have my master's in psychology.
So like scientific, clinical, not hippie shit.
Yeah,
background.
it's exactly. But also a lot of hippie spiritual background too. Like I was raised very non-normative. Like my dad's upbringing with me was not typical at all, and introduced me to a lot of this spirituality at a young age, which I then like pushed against and went in the opposite direction of like working in hospitals and wearing a white lab coat and that whole thing. And I'm kind of finding a balance between
trusting the science.
I did. Well, I did until I didn't, because I kept seeing that it wasn't fixing the root cause. Like it's like, you know, oh, Mr. Jones, your diabetes is crazy out of control and your blood sugars are insane and you're going to die. And it's like, don't recommend that he change his diet or go for a walk. Like, let's just up your metformin, to 4 times a day. And it's just, to me, that isn't fixing anything. We're not looking at the root cause of the problem. And for me, that's what psychedelics do, is they force sounds violent, but they give you an opportunity. It can be violent. It has, absolutely.
Some of my most uncomfortable, difficult journeys have been the most useful.
Absolutely.
The stuff that comes up and you have to face can actually be the most productive.
Yeah, it's it forces you to look at a lot of the root core trauma that we deal with. Quite a little bit of background on like my own stuff. Like I started very unconsciously using mushrooms when I was like 14 years old. I think my first trip I was like 14. And then I was that kid, like I did not fit in at all in school. Like I was very weird. I was hanging out with like 20-year-olds, like just didn't understand it even a little bit, how to operate in it. And I remember like I went to my calculus class tripping balls on mushrooms like my sophomore year.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the level I started operating. And again, it wasn't super conscious. And then I took a lot of years off. I didn't have any traumatic experience around it. And because of this life that I chose, because of this white coat hospital trying to fit in society in ways that weren't for me, I found myself in a really dark depression that I couldn't shake for over a decade. And I was on a lot of pharmaceutical antidepressants, anti-anxiety. I was hospitalized several times. Like it was bad and nothing was working. And I knew nothing was working. Even the meds, when they would numb me, like they would dull the depression, but they would dull everything else. Like I couldn't feel joy or euphoria or like I felt like this machine going through life. So I decided to just go balls deep, and I went to the Amazon for ayahuasca, and I lived with the Shipibo tribe, and I did, I think, 5 journeys that time with ayahuasca, and that was really the opening of that portal of like looking at other modalities of healing and understanding that there is a lot of value to I know people talk about like plant spirits, but I think there is actual energy from these things that can show you different facets of yourself that are not of yourself. So I came back from the Amazon, and I knew I didn't want to go back on medication. So I started like Reddit threading alternatives, and microdosing came up a lot. And it was like people from army veterans to housewives to movie stars to, like CEOs were talking about this and the amazing potency of it. So I'm like, all right, let's give this a shot. And I haven't been on a pharmaceutical medication since. I've felt the feels, but I haven't been in like the deep dark since starting that. And the way
how long is that?
I think that was like 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been some time. And the way that it works from a scientific perspective is like, so psilocybin is very similar in chemical structure as serotonin. So it very easily binds to serotonin receptors. And it has an incredibly long-lasting effect. So like where an SSRI, which by the way has recently been proven to be not beneficial in the treatment of depression, that was like the gold standard for decades. So it binds to this receptor, and it will last months in these clinical trials. Like people will still be feeling the effects. I think like the longest one that I read was like up to 3 months later.
Wow.
And that was larger doses, but and a lot of the ways that it also works, there's something called the default node network in the brain. And that's kind of like the monkey chatter brain, like the gremlins that start taking over. And when you introduce psilocybin to it, and other psychedelics as well, it interrupts that feed, that like chatter that you get where you can really clearly look through your thoughts. Like you've experienced this, where you can really objectively stand back and kind of get a much clearer picture of what's happening at an internal level. And it's really fascinating. I've worked with a handful of people over like the past 2 years, and that happened really organically. I didn't go out and like solicit this, but just helping to facilitate people in the microdosing, macrodosing experience, and then how to like integrate these experiences in a psychological realm to like real life applications. That's kind of like the quick and dirty version of like how I got to this place.
Yeah. And so what's your aim with Naropa? Like, do you have a sense of where you want to go with it afterwards?
I'm trying not to yes and no, because this is all so new. Like we are beta testing this as we go. It feels like to limit it to like, I want to do this one thing doesn't feel organic with the way that this is evolving. And I also don't think that it behooves us to look at it in the ways that we've previously looked at medicine and health. That being said, the things that really turn me on with this, as having in my prior chapters of healthcare, is education. People self-empowering, understanding like we are incredibly potent. Like our ability to heal ourselves is unfathomable. Like the body and the mind want to thrive, and we have forgotten how good we are at doing that. And just introducing people, like I think I gave you this scenario, like, Bob up in Montana that has a drinking problem. He's going to, go take a hero's dose of penis envy, which is a strain of psilocybin, and he's going to fuck around and he's going to find out, and he might do more damage. And I know that as these become more readily available, more people are going to be doing this unsupervised. That's unavoidable. And what I want to do is I want to create a platform and a community to educate people how to heal themselves, like how to go about this well. And like people are going to do it recreationally. That's going to happen. That is okay. Like that is part of this process. But giving people the tools and the empowerment of like for example, I actually got my dad, who is 77 years old, and he's got, I think, undiagnosed depression, bipolar, borderline, narcissist, like just this whole slew of different things. Never has sought any kind of psychiatric help whatsoever in his life, like really was vehemently against it growing up. I got him on a microdosing regimen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he did this. So I put him on a regimen of, this is classically him. He just like took all of them at the same time. I'm like, all right, space it out. And he's like,
yeah.
which I'm like, all right, that works.
That's not a microdose.
I'm like, that works too. Yeah.
It does work.
It does, yeah, absolutely. It's like, all right, I'm going to send you another bundle. Try to space it out more this time. And it was fascinating because I actually was able to hear in the quality of how he spoke about himself and the world, how it had shifted in just 2 or 3 months. And it was really profound. Like he always had this view of like, he had to battle everything. And there was this softness that I heard shift in his voice of like, there was curiosity that was coming back in that wasn't there before. There was softness, there was acceptance. And that was really amazing to be able to gift my own dad this.
Wow. Yeah, well, I've wanted to do the same with my parents, and I think this is sort of, I think this is a lot of like in the beginning of our talk where I was coming from with this defensiveness around it is because, with their attitude and their relationship with it is this. It comes from this sort of 1950s era drug war, like drugs are bad and it's not even a gray area. It's like if it's a drug, if it's illegal, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, psilocybin was in the same class of drugs as heroin. Right. Right.
And
like,
LSD is still in. I think that's still classified as like heroin.
As a class one.
I think fentanyl is like a lower classification maybe.
It might be. Yeah. Oh, I'm not talking to my thing.
But well, and so it's like I feel like they're a good representation of Middle America. It's like this is still the attitude that a lot of it's like Middle America. It's like you're either hooked on opioids or you think everything illegal is bad.
Well, this also goes back to the programming that we were talking about. We had like Saturday morning cartoons of like, the egg in the frying pan of like, this is your brain on drugs.
Right.
Nancy Reagan's whole thing, like that was their generation.
Right.
Well,
and so it's like there's it's been a long process of sort of planting the seeds and opening up that conversation, which I do think it has been opening up. I think culturally, like it's like culturally and my own sort of persistent, like just like when I can slip it in, just like opening up that door a little bit, and they are kind of I can feel them slowly coming around, but it also it's like it kind of goes back to like even their parents or their it's like some of their siblings and cousins, and they're getting old, and they're in this place where like I don't know, I have this sense. I look at what's happening, terminal illnesses and these their whole I don't know, it's like their whole energy field, and it's like I think it would be an immense help in easing their end of life journey and passing on, and I think and really like passing on, like it's almost like a utilitarian thing. It's practical in the sense that it's not just to like make death easier. It's like it's like when you pass, I really do believe that if you the ability if you can let go during that transition, that creates a smooth transition to the next realm, the next dimension, the next life or whatever. If you're clutching and you're scared and you're holding on, you're creating tension that will, like, it's like karma. It's like that will follow you wherever you go.
There's this whole theory. Einstein's theory of relativity. So when you are dying, like time is a very strange concept. As you are dying, theoretically, like it slows down. Like Time slows down to just seconds go on for days. So my thought around this is like the quality of which you pass, that is heaven or hell.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And then you were in that energy for however long that lasts for, right?
Right.
Yeah. So if you're going and you're kicking and you're screaming and you're clawing and you're fucking terrified, like that sounds like Dante's like Inferno, right? Like that is hell.
Right. And that's it's like this concept of like, do you go to heaven or do you go to hell? It all depends on your state.
Right. But everything that leads up to that moment, right? Like this is why you do the work now.
Right.
Leading up to this. Because when you're in the moment, I don't know how much. I mean, that almost sounds like, I don't know that there's a moment of choice there.
Well, right. Well, because it's a state. It's like a state of being, but it's like this. I feel like our entire life is preparation for death. It's like we're in Buddhism. There's a whole practice around dream work, and what
does that look like? I'm not familiar with it.
Well, so basically I might butcher this a little bit, but the dream world is this sort of middle ground zone, in the transition to death. It's like it's this dimension where you're communicating with entities that are coming from that place, and it's like it's like it's a real place that is like ultra dimensional. That is, we pass through this place,
but it impacts this reality. Or it impacts you as a spiritual being.
Well, I don't know what Buddhism would say. I think it impacts this reality, and I would go so far to say that we have this idea that there's like the waking world and there's the dream world, and it's like you open a door when you go to sleep and you pass in. My sense is that this is a gradient. Like there is no clear delineation. It's all just kind of one big blob. Yeah. And maybe it's like when we're sleeping, we're just kind of vibrationally tuning to more of one end of the spectrum. But it's not like a clear line between the two.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say like daydreaming is somewhere along that spectrum, right? Like you drop into it even in waking states, like you drop into theta waves.
Right.
That's what meditation is.
Right. And imagination and, and it's like, where are these things coming? Like what ideas, like where is this stuff is coming from somewhere else. Like we're just a conduit.
Right.
And so in Buddhism, there's a whole, people devote their entire lives to this practice, which is like when you go to sleep and you enter the dream world, this is practice for dying. And it's like the, so some people, like if you're inexperienced with dreaming or lucid dreaming, you go into the dream world and you're just kind of blown around. It's like a crazy funhouse mirror place. Everything's crazy. I had this crazy dream. That's like an inexperienced, that's somebody who does not have command of the dream world. They don't have their compass in that space and the ability to navigate that space efficiently. In this kind of work, lucid dreaming is a big part. It doesn't have to be lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is just one big, but it's only one facet of this. But it's like you're gaining control and capability and awareness in this space, so that because when you die, this is where you go. And if you're not prepared, if you don't know how to get your bearings and orient yourself, you're at the whim of whatever entities and forces and the mayhem that's involved, and you can get sucked into other realities or something. I'm not sure where it goes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like I told you, I'm playing around with lucid dreaming lately, which I used to be much better at when I was a kid, and kind of lost my ability in that. I've been toying with it, but I've noticed, like, since forever, like I have been able to process. Like day-to-day information can sometimes feel very overwhelming for me, and I'm like, okay, I have this feeling, I don't know what it is, I don't know where it's coming from. And in a dream state, like my subconscious is able to digest this and then like regurgitate to me through dreams, like basically work through day-to-day trauma or experience or what have you. And then I wake up being like, oh, okay. So like being able to see the picture much, much clearer. Yeah. So I completely appreciate the usefulness in the tool and the exploration. And yeah, actually, have you ever seen the movie Waking Dreams?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I started rewatching that the other. I can only watch it in like 15-minute spurts because
it's
so
only
dense.
like 15-minute chapters too. So
yeah, like I have to like close
perfect.
it. I have to like digest it and then like go back and. But yeah, that movie is absolutely fascinating, and it brings up a lot of really interesting concepts. If anybody's out there, I highly recommend watching this movie.
Yeah, that was like a core, like that was in the height of my lucid dreaming era. Was back in Boulder. That there's probably like a 6-year window where I got into it, and then Waking Dreams was like a huge inspiration.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because I haven't, dreaming has been a big part of my life, but I haven't had a real lucid dream since then. The whole lucid dreaming thing kind of went away, and then it's I've wanted to get back into it, and I've
actually started listening to like YouTube videos of different frequencies that claim to help you like drop into lucid dreaming much. I forget what hertz it's on.
Yeah.
It's like, I forget which hertz goes with the theta wavelength. But yeah, it's been really interesting because since coming to the island, I didn't have any dreams for like the first month that I was here. Like it was just a black void, which is really not normal for me. I usually have very vivid dreams. But once I started doing these and the rapé that we got with the ambiguous
the
seed.
Rapé, the secret.
The secret seed. I don't know. I must be Harmel, maybe.
I have no idea. It's
anyway,
a secret.
It's the secret.
There's nobody knows.
So I've been using rapé here on the island with some frequency, and we found this one at a restaurant that is like, what is it called? It had a really kitschy name to it.
Yeah, it's like Dreamtime Rapé.
Yeah, so rapé is the ash of tobacco, and you can mix in other herbs and seeds and whatnot. And this one, like, you really struggled with this particular flavor of rapé.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do. I mean, I did do it once later. But I did not have a good experience with it. My dreams were really dark, and I woke up with a really heavy emotional state, and I was extremely tired, and the entire day was like I was just a waste. I was dead all day.
Do you think it tapped into something that was not yet uncovered, and that was just like the emotional processing, or do you think that was just the experience in of itself?
I think it's a couple of things. I think that I did it really late, just before I went to bed. So I think I did it at midnight. I went to bed immediately afterwards. I did too much of it. I mean, the
amount that you do each time is bonkers to me, to be clear. Like, I showed him, I'm like, okay, let me, because he's telling me, he's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, what's a lot? I need a visual for this. And it's literally fucking 4 times the amount that I do each time.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So,
right.
So
judgment. No judgment.
So I do really big doses. And if I had to guess, I would say that one variable is the issue, is like too late at night, like doing it just before bed, doing a massive dose is it can be very stimulating to the nervous system. It's like I fall asleep easily. I sleep all night, but I don't think I'm getting into a good REM sleep. So it's like this kind of surface level sleeping, and then with this one in particular, it was like surface levels, like no REM, but in the morning I had a really intense dream and it was also like a dream that had a very clear message.
Yeah.
And I take my dreams seriously. I do get messages from my dreams, and I've learned to listen to it because it's real. It's real information. And this one, it was like, it was a heavy message, and it was like, man, it was like, I do not want to hear this right now. And it's like, but it was one of these things where it's like how, how literally do I need to take this? Because it could be, the dream was something that could just be like, this is just sort of, I'm just processing what's kind of all this stuff that's in my field, and it's just kind of coming out in this dream story. It's not necessarily that I have to take action about it. It's just, these are kind of the fears that are percolating. And then, or, that's on one end, or the other end of the spectrum is like, no, this is like a literal message from your subconscious.
You need to execute.
Like, you need to do this thing now. There's an urgency to it. And I was just like, oh my God. In the execution of that is a drastic, big decision. Like, it's like, it's not just like in order to do what the dream was saying, it would be like completely upend my
flipping
life
the table
and change everything like tomorrow.
Right.
So it was like,
existential crises.
It was like, yeah, let's go to Eden. Let's go to the dance party. I'm just like, I can't deal with this right now.
That's a great segue from that. I had a great time at Eden.
Oh man,
that place was great.
I've been having so much.
Thank you for turning me on to that, because I think I told you this. Like, I always thought of it as like this dark, cavernous, ketamine zombie. But it's great. I love it.
Oh, isn't it?
It's amazing.
And this is what everybody says. They're like, oh, but the music's so dark, and everybody's drinking alcohol, and they're on ketamine. And I'm like,
it's fine.
You don't get it. You don't see,
like you just get to be in your own energy, and like it's an energy playground, right? Like, you go there, and like you get to witness peopling so much.
Oh, it's
like,
best
it's delightful.
People watching.
Yeah.
It's like it's I don't know. You gotta go. So. Like, for what it's worth, I go for sunrise. So
right,
like,
we go there
at night. It's very dark. It's people. It's like people drinking, people doing ketamine, disassociatives. Like they're now.
It is zombie energy. Then I feel like
super zombie energy. Everybody's just getting as fucked up as they can. People are doing cocaine, and it's very like entities are swarming, and they are like,
they're demons
ready.
Come out
It's like this is like entities are ready to take over the unconscious people. But in the morning, when the sun comes up, all of those people clear out, and then you get a new wave of people. Well, it's kind of nice
because you kind of get to see, like, when we dropped in the first time we were there slightly earlier, like dropping acid and then peaking, like coming up as the sun is rising, like you kind of see this this transition switch from like night creatures to day creatures, and I love watching that. It's kind of like here in nature, right? Like, as the sun is going down, like, it's a very obvious switch of like natural energy flows, and I really enjoy watching the transit. Same thing at Burning Man, right? Like, when that sun goes down, like you feel that energetic like the different energies taking over. And I enjoy witnessing this at Eden as well.
Well, and so it's like the way that I do it, and the way that we do it is like what I would say that it's a very conscious drug usage. It's like we go taking psychedelics, but it's like it's in a very it's not like it's very clean. It's like
there's an intention setting. We sit on the beach. We're not like doing rails on the toilet. Like there is a lot of unconsciousness happening there, but
and it's not to like get fucked up. It's like it's like to raise the vibration.
Well, it's to play. It's like for me, playing is raising the vibration. And it's like to play with my energy, to dance, to move in my body, to enjoy your company, to enjoy other, like, be free. And for me, that is a huge vibration raiser, all in its own medicine. And and like I think for me, psychedelics has we want to do something about that. The sound effect helped.
Yeah.
So for me, psychedelics has really made that a prominent feature in my life. There's, for me, ceremony is around everything, from how I drop acid to how I consume my meals to how I make love to how I wipe my ass in the morning. Like, everything should be done with consciousness and awareness. And for me, that's brought in, like, that's kind of the line of spirituality that psychedelics has introduced into my world. Yeah.
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 Well, I don't know. I don't know that I have much. I can't really think of much else to say. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of fun, juicy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do a part 2 around why I kick kids at some point.
Yeah, maybe get some footage of it. Maybe a how-to video.
Just gently, just like nudge them. What, to be clear, I didn't like drop kick the child. Okay. It was just like a very, like, to the shin.
Yeah.
You know, it gets their attention.
You can try to walk it back. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna.
You kicked a kid. It's fine.
I did. He kicked me
I
first.
support it. All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck on your Naropa journey and your psychedelic adventures and integrations and educations.
Thank you. I look forward to dropping back in here with you. I think this winter, probably. I will make a repeat and probably longer duration. I can. My house is directly up the hill from Dan's, so I get to throw coconuts at his roof and stop by. I've been your version of Kramer whilst being here. I just kind of like pop in whenever. Like, he tolerates me and is very kind about it. But yeah, so I look forward to that being a reality again. So yeah, thanks.
Cool.
All right, sounds good.
All right.